Hey everybody, welcome back. About 10 minutes out of top of descent here, heading into Princess Juliana in the ATR. Going to talk today a little bit about Dynamic Vibrance and the new driver, 551.76, the new NVIDIA driver. So first impressions, I mean, I like Dynamic Vibrance. The video I did yesterday has gotten a huge, way more interest than I ever thought it would get. Um, but I mean, I think Dynamic Vibrance is great. It's enabled right now. I think one of the things that people forget is how, like, I've done this flight. Well, not this flight, but like flown to the Caribbean many times in real life. And the thing is, like, we always have sunglasses on. Like when I'm sitting at the window seat, looking out the window, I've got my sunglasses on the entire time. I think people forget just how bright it is. I mean, it's extremely bright. Um, Heading, in the islands, and this type of, you can see kind of the horizon where it just kind of blurs, and it's just super bright. I mean, I I don't think it looks unreal, to be honest. I think probably you'll get a lot of people who will say, well, that doesn't look real. And I mean, come on. And on some level, we'll never get, perfect, you know, visuals or whatever you want to call it. But I think people forget how super bright it really is. Looking down over at, what are we looking down over at? I believe that's St. Kitts and Nevis right there, and I believe that because it's true. That's Nevis right there. So we're coming up on top of descent, heading down into Juliana. I figured this would be an appropriate place to, and we've got, look at this, VNAV has popped up, so why don't we give that a try and see what happens. That's unusual. Oh, yeah. It'd be even more helpful if I actually dial in an altitude that's lower than the altitude that I'm at. It's unusual that VNAV will pop up by itself. Not VNAV pop up, but the vertical guidance. Very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen it do that without me sort of engaging it. But and of course the other thing, and actually, before I move on, like this view right here, looking at the cockpit, I just think everything looks, it just looks crisp. It looks really good in my opinion, and I think the sun kind of glare right here looks very good. I'm really almost as impressed with the internal views and how they've been really brightened up than I am by anything else. Let's see here. FMS nav performance, we've got that. We did that. Decision height, we did not do 700 feet. Okay. 700 feet. Now, I try to avoid doing what I'm doing today, which is trying out two new things at once. As we hit top of descent, 700. Arrival briefing we'll do here shortly. I try to avoid, and there's St. Bart's right off the nose, and Juliana out in front of us. I try to avoid trying two different things at once, trying two different new things at once on any given flight, because you don't know which of the two is giving you either the benefit or the, you know, whatever you don't like, whatever you don't happen to like. But one thing I have noticed is some what people call ghosting. But what's interesting, I'm not trying to make you vomit, I'm just trying to, because like earlier in the flight I was moving my head up and down like that, and I was getting some ghosting, like some horizontal line ghosting right here. But what's interesting about it is that it seems to go away after it happens for a little bit, because it was pronounced. I mean, it was clearly visible. Let me see what distance I am from the VOR at Juliana, which is 38.2 nautical miles. And I'm wondering if it is, I did not clear my shader caches. I didn't do all that stuff, which kind of I actually probably should have. As we look over here at Stacia, no, Stacia's right there. Excuse me. I probably should have done that, given the fact that you know, this is a really kind of a big upgrade. You know, with the app and the driver, probably would have been a good idea. But I find it very interesting that early on in the flight, I was definitely getting. I'll stop that so you guys don't get sick. I was definitely getting some ghosting, and it's now gone. I mean, it's clearly gone. And to me, part of the thing about ghosting is, I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of flying you do. This is the kind of flying I do, so I don't do a lot of fast head movement, and I think that's kind of, even if you have it, or like, you know, small amounts of it, I think it's tolerable. You know, at lower values, at lower, you know, instances of it happening. Like, you know, you can see the speed right there. This is what bothers me more than anything else, is not being able to read the indication on the PFD. But you can see a little bit of it here. But again, this is typically what you're seeing in terms of a descent rate, 1,500 feet. I mean, that doesn't make any difference to me. You know, I mean, even if I'm flying IFR and I'm looking for minimums, that doesn't bother me. Maybe it should. So where are we? About 25 miles south. So we'll make our first radio call. We are on Batsim, Princess Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, about 25 miles to the south. Descending through flight level 150, we will be flying the RNAV 10 approach Princess Juliana. So, RNAV approach, we don't have to put in any frequencies. Let's see here. How far are we? 30 miles from Yamata. So it's still 35 miles from Ivaki. So 45 miles to go. Final approach course 096. Glide slope intercept is at Lessor 1700. LNAV. Decision height. LNAVs don't really have a decision height. LNAVs have an MDA, a minimum descent altitude. And what's the difference between the decision height and an MDA? Decision height is minimums on a precision approach, where you know, have a constant rate descent on a vertical glide path, and when you reach a certain altitude, you make a decision. Do I go around? Do I continue the approach? Minimum descent altitude, which is what we have here, is you would actually normally kind of the old-fashioned way to do it is descend down. You would cross whatever the previous fix is, the altitude restriction of the previous fix, which in this case is less or 1,700 feet, and you would do what we refer to as either dive and drive or chop and drop. They both achieve the same thing. And so what you would do is you just chop the power and drop down to that 700 feet as quickly as you can, and then you fly along level at that 700 feet looking for the airport environment on the non-precision approach. But they're starting this approach now into Juliana is what's called the constant descent final approach, which is you'll see CDFA on your charts. I don't want to bring up the charts. I'm using the FrameGen mod, and you won't be able to. It'll jitter all over the place. I suppose I can do it real quick. I would really be happy if I have this chart open, and I don't. Let's go TNCM charts approach. No approach. RNAV10. Let's see that. So what I'm talking about is this here, 700 feet, and the constant descent final approach. So what that is normally you would cross lessor at 700, and this is a non-precision approach. You drop down. This is the LNAV, which is a non-precision approach. You drop down to 700 feet relatively quickly, then fly along at 700 feet until you get to Mapon and then you'll look and see if you see the airport. With this new CDFA, constant descent final approach, what they want you to do is cross lessor here and descend on a 3-degree glide slope to hit the missed approach point at about 700 feet. And so that your FMC will do the work for you in terms of trying to figure out. It basically generates a pseudo glide slope for you. All right. If you guys didn't know, I actually know a little bit about flying too. I'm not just. I find it sort of weird in a way that I've gotten this like tech thing going because I don't really think that's my gig, but it's what you guys watch, so. So, you gotta give the people what they want, right? Alright, so we're bringing the speed back. Alright, seatbelts and landing lights are on. 6500 is transition level. It's the difference between transition level and transition altitude. The difference is transition level is for landing. Transition altitude is for departing. Alright, cabin pressure is decreasing, which is what we want. Alright, 180 knots. We are 7 miles from Yamana. I'm cool with staying at the speed we are at. Yamana is basically a 10-mile right base, so. So we shall just kind of hang out right here. Scan for traffic. There is Anguilla. Do not see any. I take that back. There's a DA-62. Who's on VATSIM? Should be making radio calls. Well, he's not making radio calls. Yeah, and I do notice a little bit. I don't know whether there's Saba. I don't know whether the whether it's the driver that's a little bit jittery. It's not as smooth. The performance I'm getting right now is not as smooth as I am used to. 6,500 feet. Altimeter 1017. Alright. Speed back here a little bit. Princess Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, 10-mile right base, runway 10, Princess Juliana. Alright. First bunch of flaps there. Again, I'm okay with this speed. I don't need to be slowing down any more than this. And we've got 2 aircraft. Got FedEx departing. And he was giving radio calls. Well, he was doing text, sending text calls on VATSIM. That DA whatever is not. DA62 is out here somewhere and I can't see him. I can't hear him either, which is what he should be doing. Alright. Altimeter, cabin altitude, all good. Speed back here just a little bit. We have 2 from Mavaki. That DA62 should be right over the threshold right now. We are beneath the gear speed. Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, turning a 10-mile final runway 10. This is Juliana. All right, let's notify the cabin crew. It's funny that I don't have to use the checklist on in the 737, which I think is a much more complicated airplane to fly. With this airplane, I do. All right, let's take off. All good. So I'm just now waiting for. Let's go approach here, VFP mode, and let's see. There's that FedEx coming off there. We should be at 1700 right at less, where you can see the little barb right there. So we should intercept somewhere out here. Once we hit 2,500 feet, we'll go gear down. Fast, we go to 1,700. There's Anguilla, my favorite place in the world. Go to power here. There's VFP. Alright, missed approach altitude is 4,000. And there's 2,500 feet. We'll go gear down. Alright, looking good. Once we hit Lessor, that's 5 miles. We'll go flaps full. Gear down 3 green. Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, 5 mile final runway 10. Princess Juliana. And you can see we're a little bit off. It does this when it goes by waypoints. There's 5 miles. I'm happy to stick with this until about 3 miles. Only because otherwise we're just going to be crawling our way in. Alright, lights are good to go. Gear down 3 green, flaps 15. This is why you do checklists. We are 1.9 from Maarten. At 1 mile from Maarten, we will be at 3 miles from the threshold. And we will go flaps full. And I will take control of my aeroplane. Very nice, very nice. Alright, we'll go flaps full. And y'all damn near autopilot away. My airplane. Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, 3 mile final runway 10. Princess Juliana. Alright, we got winds out of the right. Out of the right at about 1-2 knots. So, no. That's one thing I don't want to do is get super
approaching
right
minimum.
You can feel that crosswind. We're definitely a little bit off to the side there. We'll bring some power out.
Minimum.
Passengers are vomiting right now. Continuing.
$500.
Alright, 2 white, 2 red. Little bit of power out here. Wanted to flatten out on me. I think this wind is kind of variable. This is not
200.
where I'd like to be. Prefer being on the runway.
100. 50. 40. 30.
Around
20. 10.
Right rudder, left rudder rather. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, was not a half bad crosswind landing in the good old ATR. That wasn't half bad at all. Timer going here. Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256. We'll be back taxiing runway 10. Princess Juliana. This is annoying that they've got these lights like right in the middle of this. And the reason why I like to make a left-hand turn in this particular instance is because that way I can see whether anything's coming. A lot of people would go around and make that turn in the opposite direction, but make sure you don't hit anything. So, let's lock the flight controls. Taxi takeoff lights coming on. Flaps up. Trims 3 axes. Rope heats off. Those will burn out those will burn out, those probe heats, if you leave them on. TRU coming off. Transducer rectifier unit. You can just do that. You can just do that. Alright, so here we are. We'll vacate here. Do this as Delta. Alright. I was so focused on the landing, I didn't even... Oh, geez, I didn't even look to see whether the, to kind of see what the environs looked like. Let's turn off the landing lights here. We'll turn off our strobes. Juliana traffic, Caribbean 256, clear, runway 10, Princess Juliana. Gotta give it a little flair, right? Little captain's flair. I never use the... I always use nose wheel steering in these planes. I never use the... what do they... I don't even know what they call that thing. The tiller, I think they call it. This is why I'm always using like differential braking to try and bring my aeroplane around the bend. Just try to get around the corner. There we go. Look at this. Look at this. These dudes. That's amazing. They're actually waiting for me at Bravo 2. I didn't even pick this. I mean, I didn't even select this as a destination, much less pick a parking spot. But this is the appropriate place for the... There we go. Look at that. Bring that right to feather. Let's see here. Let's kill the left prop. Bring the right back to feather. And we'll go into prop brake. And now that we've got the prop brake going, let's turn this taxi takeoff light off so these poor gentlemen retain their vision. I didn't mean to turn that on. Then we'll come over here. We'll go... Well, I should first of all turn that on. We'll go wheel chocks and we'll go ground power. And come up here. We'll take us some ground power. And let's see here. Let's turn off the left fuel pump. Now that we've got external power, I can kill the right engine because otherwise my ACARs for Caribbean Virtual Airlines will not recognize the flight as being stopped. And let's see, those lights are off. We can turn the beacon off. And we'll turn that fuel pump off. And I think we're good to go, fellas. We're good to go. We'll come over here. We'll open up some doors. So, my thoughts. I mean, this looks great. I think this looks really, really good. And just for your reference, let me turn Dynamic Vibrance off. You ready? Let's split it off. Split it on. I don't know. I like it. I like it. I think it gives it a little bit of pizzazz. It just gives it some spirit, you know, in my opinion. So, yeah, I was talking earlier about the 55176 driver. If I had to believe that one of the two, either the driver or the app, was causing the ghosting, I would guess it's the driver. But I honestly think it sort of resolved itself. And, I mean, it definitely was there at one point, and it definitely was not there at another point, at a later point. So, I don't know. I don't know what to advise. I like this app solely for Dynamic Vibrance, just for Dynamic Vibrance. I like the app. The driver, I'm not quite as sold on. And look at that parking job, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that parking job. That right there is a masterpiece. You guys don't know how happy that makes me. That is absolutely perfect. That is perfect. Good pilot always prides himself on his parking. So the app I love. I know there are some people who've had some issues with it, performance issues, and crashing issues. So it is in beta. I mentioned that in the video. Um, I like it. I'm sticking with it. The the driver I'm not quite so sure about, but I'm gonna give it some time. I'm gonna give it some time, and I'll stick it out. I think if the previous one, what is it, 551.61, I think it was. If you are enjoying good performance on that one, I would just stay with it. I wouldn't bother upgrading because I don't think there's anything that this new one purports to improve or fix that is in any way related to Microsoft Flight Simulator. So that being the case, I hope you guys enjoyed the flight. We are going to be doing a group flight around Jamaica later on today, and about 4 o'clock Eastern time. And I invite you all to come join us. And in any event, hope everybody's doing well. I've also added a Discord channel. If you guys want to check that out, it's in the links in my YouTube channel. And hope you guys are having a good day, and we'll talk soon.